such a state of grace. Lead the way. Lead the way, God, lead the way. I want to live in such a holy place, such a holy place. You are deepest joy, deepest joy is all that you are. Deepest joy again. Deepest joy is all that you are. Show the way. Show the way, God. Show the way. I want to live in such a state of grace. Lead the way. Lead the way, God. Lead the way. I want to live in such a holy place, such a holy place. Let's sing that again. Show the way. Show the way, God. Show the way. I want to live in such a state of grace. Lead the way, God. Lead the way. I want to live in such a holy place, such a holy place. You're a sacred love. One more time. You are sacred love. Sacred love is all that you are. One more time. You are sacred love. Sacred love is all that you are. Yay! Woo! Woohoo! Surprise again. Okay. Well, good fourth. And thanks to everybody for the fun stuff. Look how cute you look with your hat and stuff. And Kathy looks so cute. Everybody's just very beard? Festive. Where's her beard? I like that beard. The beard is great. Yeah. Uncle Sam. I grew up with Uncle Sam posters. Yeah. We want you. That's cute. The reading this morning is interesting because at the end of it, I'll kind of tell you why. So it's from The Spirituality of Imperfection by Ernest Kurtz. On a chill, rainy afternoon in November 1934, two men sat catty-corner at the kitchen table of a brownstone house in Brooklyn, New York. On the white oilcloth-covered table stood a pitcher of pineapple juice, 2 glasses, and a bottle of gin, recently retrieved from its hiding place in the overhead tank of the toilet in the adjacent bathroom. The visitor, neatly groomed and bright-eyed, smiled gently as his tall, craggy-faced host reached for the bottle and offered him a drink. "No thanks," Ebby said. "I'm not drinking." "Not drinking? Why not?" Bill was so surprised that he stopped pouring to look with concern at his old friend. "What's the matter?" "I don't need it anymore," Ebby replied simply. "I've got religion." Religion? Damn. For a fleeting moment, Bill wondered about his friend's sanity. Ebby, after all, was a drinking buddy from way back. Now, apparently, he had gone off the deep end. His alcoholic insanity had become religious insanity. Bill gulped a slug of gin. Well, damn it. Not him. Religion was for the weak, the old, the hopeless. He'd never get religion. Bill Wilson never did get religion, but he did get sober. And unlike Ebby, who would die destitute after 30 more years of sporadic drinking, Bill stayed sober. How? Through a spiritual program that grew precisely from his realization that religion, with its canons and commandments, wouldn't work for him, and the seemingly contradictory understanding that without help from a power greater than himself, he was lost. We must find some spiritual basis for living, Bill later said about himself and other alcoholics, else we die. Alcoholics Anonymous has been called the most significant phenomenon in the history of ideas in the 20th century. In the half century since William Griffith Wilson, Dr. Robert Holbrook Smith, and their followers gave the new fellowship a name, AA, has helped millions of alcoholics to get and to stay sober. More important for our story, the story of the spirituality of imperfection, many other individuals have found in the 12-step program pioneered by Alcoholics Anonymous healings they were unable to find in either psychology or religion. Why is this so? How does this happen? The answer is extraordinarily simple. AA taps into an ancient source of spiritual awareness, making available to modern men and women the long and rich tradition of the spirituality of imperfection. True to one hallmark of this tradition, it is the unconventionality of AA spirituality, its wariness of the dogma and directives of organized religion that has appealed to so many men and women who, like Bill Wilson, could not find the answer to their despair in conventional religion. For although it insists on the necessity of the spiritual for recovery, AA has always presented its program as spiritual rather than religious. The problem with organized religions, Bill Wilson once complained, is their claim how confoundedly right all of them are. Their spirituality of imperfection that forms the heart and soul of Alcoholics Anonymous makes no claim to be right. It is a spirituality more interested in questions than in answers, more a journey toward humility than a struggle for perfection. Isn't that great? I have to tell you, I was married to an alcoholic for 13 years, and one of the reasons I ended up at CSL was through Al-Anon. Al-Anon follows the same kind of ideas as AA and is spiritually based. And I was at an Al-Anon meeting one night, and next door, I walked into a group of people, and the lady leading the group was Science of Mind. Ta-da!
And
so isn't that interesting? And so I'm reading this last night, and I thought, oh my goodness, I need to share that. So hooray for AA in many forms.
Yes, indeed. Connie? Get up here, Connie. We're doing patriotic songs today, because have you noticed it's 4th of July? Okay. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts, while all around me a voice kept sounding. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. When the sun comes shining, when I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling, the voice was chanting as the fog was lifting. This land was made for you and me. Sing it, everybody. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me.
Yes, it is.
We are good? No, Marcia too? Okay. Welcome. I'm gonna hold this. All right. So, couple of things. That song, what we learned in 4th or 5th grade. That's a great song. And I sang that when I was living in New York, and it was like California was a long ways away, and yet we wound up going to California, so it was kind of nice. And reading, I just had such a hard time with the reading this week, and finally, I don't know, that came yesterday, and but the thing is that we had our church. My first religious science church was San Jose Church in San Jose, California, and they had regular AA meetings there, and AA people were all throughout religious science. Why? Because it's not a religion, it's a philosophy, it's a spiritual teaching. It's not, there's no dogma saying this is how you have to be. And that is what Bill Wilson had a problem with, with the dogma saying, like, if you're going to be part of this religion, you have to do this, and we're the only way. That's another thing. Science of Mind doesn't teach it. We're the only way. We teach you. I just happen to have these handy. These are our little, we have 2 little flyers that we're going to be handing out to people. And it said, this one says, how are you looking for a spiritual community where you learn how to think, not what to think? So today, I would like to encourage you to do some thinking, to think maybe a little differently, because today is July 4th. Today's July 3rd. Tomorrow's July 4th. It's a holiday. And most people are going to, use it as a holiday. It's a day off of work for some people, not stores, because they have to, you have to always be open for the shoppers. So most people are going to gather together. They'll be doing fireworks and they're doing all this, and they've lost the understanding of the whole meaning of the holiday itself. It's sort of like everything else, like Christmas. Christmas comes and what happens? We get involved with buying gifts and stuff like that, as opposed to, knowing why we have Christmas and that kind of thing. But our theme this month is the wonder of relationships. And so today's relationship is the one that is the most important, the most significant to each one of us. You know which one that is? The relationship I have with my
self as a human person, but also my divine self, both, okay? And so I thought that I would kind of combine that part also with the July 4th part because it just seemed natural, okay? So the whole thing with, I don't know how many of you actually have, looked at the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution from the perspective of someone who is a citizen, who is becoming a citizen, okay? They give them these books, and they have the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Comes in a booklet that I printed out so you could see. And in it, the beginning is a message from the director. And on one side is a quote from George Washington. And George Washington says, "The basis of our political systems is the right of people to make and alter their constitutions of government. But the Constitution, which at any time exists till changed by explicit and authentic act of the whole people, is sacredly obligatory upon all." And they have people is in capital letters, whole people, sacredly obligatory. And the message from the director in part says, "More than 200 years ago, our founding fathers set out to establish a government based on individual rights and the rule of law. The Declaration of Independence, which officially broke all political ties between the American colonies and Great Britain, set forth the ideas and principles behind a just and fair government, and the Constitution outlined how this government would function." He says, "Make no mistake, we have been presented with a timeless framework for self-government, but in order to preserve this wonderful gift, we must hold these principles close to our hearts." And I underlined principles because we just read the Declaration of Principles. What are principles? They are basic. They are the foundation of your belief systems. They don't change. Principles don't change. And so in the science of mind, we've had the Declaration of Principles. The way we got them is someone asked Ernest Holmes to write what it was that he believed. And those things that he believed is what has become our Declaration of Principles. So that's why each one of them starts with "I believe." And they have sustained the test of time, and everything goes back to those principles. So the Declaration was on July 2nd of 1776. They voted, the group of men who had gathered from around 13 colonies, voted to be independent from Great Britain. And then they said, now that we voted, we have to let everybody know that we voted. And so we need a document. And so they sent 5 guys, including Thomas Jefferson, who was the primary writer, along with Benjamin Franklin and John Adams, a couple others that we hardly ever know. Anyway, they came up with this document and they began to sign it. The edits were approved on July 4th of 1776, 200 some odd years from tomorrow. Okay, so then on July 8th, they got a bunch of copies printed, and the Declaration was read for the first time on July 8th of 1776. So what is it that this document says? Because Ernest Holmes, there's a book called The Essential Ernest Holmes, and in it he says, "It would be advisable for us to reread the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States and try to think out their meaning all over again." Did I? No, we haven't got it yet. Line by line and word by word. For here we find not only the supreme ideal in government, but the specific and definite directions for working it out. And it is simple enough. a federal union so organized that it may protect the interests of the common good without infringing on the rights of the individual citizen. Ernest Holmes wrote that as part of a writing that he did called Spiritual Armament. Guess when it was done? At the beginning of the Korean War in 1950. And he says, but freedom is something that is won with difficulty and kept only through eternal vigilance. And what does freedom really mean? As it works out through the only instrument that can maintain its purpose, the instrument of government. So other than the idea that all people are created before God, he says that every man is an individual in his own right, and that each should have the privilege of self-expression, provided his desires do not infringe on the rights of others. Democracy is a great cooperative enterprise through which this is made possible. So I have gone through so many years of people telling me that they did not, well, let me put it a different way. There's a book, I know I have it in my house. I've searched every place I could possibly think of for this book. It's David Seabury's book, The Art of Selfishness. Anybody heard of that? Okay, it's a great book. And it's just a small book. And I went online and, for the first time, I've never, ever had this problem before. I ordered a Kindle book, right? They downloaded immediately. It was not the book that was supposed to be. The cover was one thing, and inside it was this thing on witches. Witches? I was like, I can't even keep this, okay? All right, so I sent it back. So now I have to order the book in person because I absolutely have to have this book again. See, what he says is that the reason that it's important is that people call us selfish, right? We've probably all been called selfish at some point or another, right? When do people call you selfish? They call you selfish when you are doing something for yourself and not for them. They want you to do something and you're saying no. And he's saying it's okay to say no. That actually, no, sometimes is self-care. I think that freedom and self-care go together. I think we need to create principles for our personal self that says, I get to self-care for myself. I get to be who I desire to be, and this is who I am. And we create that as a principle in our life, not a value. Values change, but principles do not. What would you write if you wrote a principle for yourself that lasted 200 years? Think about that. I mean, I realize most of us aren't going to live 200 years. But think of it in terms of that's an eternal, right? That's something that says, I'm going to last the rest of my life. When I turned 70, my mother and my grandmother both passed away. And it felt like a monumental birthday. Because, every year that ends with a zero feels monumental, right? 20, 30, 40. Okay, so when I turned 70, and I looked at it and I said, my grandmother lived to be 104. If I live as long as she did, I have another 34 years to live. My mother lived to 86. If I live as long as she did, that's another 16 years. Stop and think about that. What am I going to do for the next 30 years? If I had not had that conversation with myself, I would not be standing here. Because one of the things I realized is that ministry was important to me. So, the thing is that we have to have these principles in our life. And one of the principles is I'm going to live as long as I can possibly live. And I'm going to be as healthy as I can possibly be during that time, because it's no fun laying up in a bed having somebody else take care of you. Well, it's not for me. Let me put it that. Somebody else maybe, but not for me. I don't want to do that. I want to be active. I want to be healthy. So I do things that activate my brain. I do things that keep my body healthy. I do things that stimulate me so that I want to continue to live. Those are my principles, but what are yours? Think about that. We, in the Declaration of Independence, it says, and this is the reason why Ernest Holmes likes this so much. I know I have this piece of paper here somewhere. Here it is. The Declaration of Independence says, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Self-evident means obvious, clear, or apparent. That all men, of course, they put capital M, and at the time they were talking about men, but we know, because we have progressed, right? We have grown. This is not a principle, okay? These men were not a principle, but what they said was a principle, okay? We hold these truths, which they use T, capital T with truths, to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. So creator, capital C, meaning God, because fortunately, they didn't use God, because if they had used God, they would what? Put it in a religious setting, okay? Endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, getting, in other words, their just powers from who? The consent of the governed. The consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And that is the reason why Ernest Holmes said we need to read it. The declarations of principles are what this country is based on, and that's what we're celebrating, that we have these principles. Not everybody in the world has these principles, but he's also saying what? That we have an obligation. And it's written right there that we're supposed that the government gets its power from our saying this is what we want. How do we say what we want? By voting. That's how we contribute, is we say what we want by voting. Now here's the thing. I looked it up, and from the 1930s, when they started keeping track up until this last presidential election, no more than 62% of the people vote in a presidential election. Can you imagine? And most of the lowest was in 1996, and only 49% voted. Even when Obama, and they were like, oh, Obama got all this, 57%. So the thing is that I understand that we don't like to talk about politics and all of that stuff. I totally get it. I'm not talking about politics. Okay? I'm talking about the consent of the governed, which are in our founding principles, to participate in our government in a way that we choose. And what does Science of Mind teach? Choose, make choices. We have to make choices about how we're going to care for our body, what things we're going to read, what things we're going to talk about, what things we're going to do, how we're going to live. We make choices about all those things. We also get to make choices about the place in which we live. That's part of our consciousness. That's part of, we are, when we have a membership meeting, okay? Or even on our board, when we have a membership meeting, we all talk about this, that, and another, right? And then we do what? We vote on what it is we desire. What are we doing? We're participating in a democratic system with the consent of the governed, because guess what? The board does not do anything that the membership does not want. And why do we invite everybody to come to board meetings? Do you know why we do that? Because we want everybody to participate. The community gets to participate in what we're doing. These are all relationships. They're all relationships. We have relationship with ourselves. We have our relationships with family. We have relationships with friends. We have relationships with spiritual communities. We have relationships with our work, wherever we happen to be. We have all kinds of relationships. We'll be talking about different ones this month. But all of these different relationships, when it comes to government, however we go, I don't want to participate. Think about that. Think about that. Just think about that. I don't want to tell you how to think. I shouldn't say that. I said it wrong way. I don't want to tell you what to think. I want you to think about how you live in the world. And it should come from what? From your inner sense. So I don't care who you vote for. Actually, it doesn't matter to me if you don't vote. Because if you don't vote, somebody is going to vote for you and make decisions for you, okay? People who come to our church, all right? We've made all these decisions about being in this church and being in this community and being here with what? The people who are sitting in this room, basically, and a few others, those of you online. Stop and think about that. There's people who could have helped to make those decisions, who could have participated, who have been a part of this spiritual community in the past. They could also have participated in those decisions. They didn't. And so because they didn't, they get this and they look at it and they go like, yes, I want that, or no, I don't. And they will act in accordance with that. So we have various layers of stuff that we are participating in. And we get to participate comfortably or uncomfortably. If the people who come here and they weren't a part of making this happen, they may come back and say, I don't think I like this. Yeah, this isn't what I would want. Well, you weren't here to help make the decisions. Okay? So what they do, they withdraw and they just don't come back. But there are other people who we can attract who will go like, wow, this is really nice. I'm so glad that you created this so I can move into it. Okay? Because that's what all of us did. We were born into this. We didn't make all of this. We weren't here in 1776. We didn't help with all of that. We didn't do any of that. We came in and we go like, wow, this is really interesting. Look at the country that I have. Okay? It's our choice. Now, some people looked around and said, I don't like it. And they've moved. They've left the country. Stop and think about it. That's what they call them, expats. My niece lived in Spain for maybe 4 or 5 years. And they called them expats. They used to get together all the time. Okay, so they've decided, well, she's come back now. But, the thing is that people make choices. We don't have to stay here. But it doesn't matter whether we're talking about the government or we're talking about our families. We came into these families and we look at the family and we go like, I love this family. It's great. This is the best family I could possibly be. And then others, I know because I have counseled with them, go, you know what? I don't know how I got in that family because I just don't belong in it. We just don't mesh at all. Okay. And then they're doing what? Well, I can make my spiritual community my family. So they'll start adopting new families, right? I mean, we all do this, but it's all about self-care. It's all about taking care of ourselves. And, and sometimes when we leave our families, they do not appreciate our leaving. They do not. They don't want to sit down and help heal stuff, but they don't appreciate us leaving either. They want us to stay around and be miserable with them. Okay? All right, so it's like, no, I'm not staying around here to be miserable with you. Okay? But see, those are the principles that we have, right? And one of our principles is like, I am going to live a happy, joyful, stress-free life. Okay? And if you're going to have those things, then guess what? You're going to have to make choices. I love this. The reason I chose this declaration, here's my program. This Declaration of Principle. I believe in God, the living Spirit, Almighty. God is almighty and it's living. It is not out there somewhere. When they wrote this, they thought that God was out there somewhere. But we know that God is not out there. Okay? We have learned this in 200 years and science has backed us up. One indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. Ernest Holmes did not have the scientific words for this, but he had these words: self-existent. Self-existent. What does that mean? It means that God does not need something else to make it happen. That's why if it's indestructible and absolute, it can't have a devil. It can't have another power. It has to be the only power. This one, okay, manifests itself in and through all creation. Look around. God, every one of you, just look around. All of this is all God's creation. Each one of us. No, I'm serious. Look at each other. These are God's creations right here in this room. Okay? So God is manifesting itself in and through all creation. And that the largest, most highest consciousness, let me put it that way, the creation with the highest consciousness capable of being in close contact and awareness of the presence of God in them is human beings. So as far as we know, I don't know about the whales and all that, but as far as we know, the human beings, we have made cities, we have made governments, we have made families, we have, picked up and moved people out. We have been good and we have been oppressive. We have been a lot of different things as human beings. All of this has come from that one cause. And guess what? The whole thing about the Garden of Eden is about making choices. That we can choose to have families that are vibrant and alive and joyful and happy, or we can have families that, that's our choice. Then it goes on to say, but it is not absorbed by its creation. And what that means is that you do not get to influence God. God influences you, but you don't get to it because you are not absorbed by its creation. It is not going to be absorbed by what you think. It is not going to be changed by what you think. But you can change your relationship to it. Then he says, I believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in all. That is probably the one that I love the most. I believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in all. So what he is saying there is God is in and through and has all of us. That it does not make an exception with a person. Did you see that young man who killed his wife with a baby this week? In New York, he just walked up and killed her. Left the baby. God's him too. But he does not know it. He does not know it. And because he does not know it, he acted in a way that some circles would call evil. I would call it ignorance. It's painful. It's sad. It's just, now we have a child who has lost both parents because he is going to jail. They found him. He is going to jail. And his mother and the child has no mother now. But we live in a world that doesn't understand that we have these inalienable rights to pursue happiness in our own way. And God is saying, you get to create the life that you want. I believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in all, and that we are all incarnations of the one Spirit. Just because we don't know something doesn't mean that we are not that which it is. Just because we do things that are unpleasant, that are not healing, that get in our own way, that are selfish, really truly selfish, that are greedy, okay? Just because we do things that are out of the best interest for ourselves and others does not mean that that we are not incarnations of the one Spirit. And somehow or another, we have to learn to start looking at people. And we can look at, what does it say in the textbook? I don't like what your behavior, but I know who you are, the Spirit. And when you see people in your life, when they're acting out of that ignorance, just recognize that they're acting out of ignorance of, they don't know who they are. They think that they are this human being and they have suffered. And because they are suffered, they think they have the right to suffer. They have the right to make other people suffer. That's their belief. It's not mine, and hopefully it's not yours. So our relationship starts with ourselves. And as we create principles for our own lives, we begin to think in ways and be in ways and believe in ways and act in ways that support the principles that we live by. By the way, don't just think them, write them down. You know why? Because you will forget. Why do you think they wrote this stuff down? Okay, write it down. Ernest Holmes wrote it down. They wrote it down, the Declaration of Independence. They wrote all that stuff down. And he, someplace in his writing in that talk, he says that these are faith principles. And as you read them, you see the faith. These are men who believed. If you ever get to Washington, D.C., how many of you have been there and done any of that stuff? Okay. Everywhere you go, it's God on the walls, right? I mean, there's all this stuff because a lot of them were Masons. They believed in God. Now, they believed in God a little differently, but the fact of the matter, we can translate that easily into our science of mind, where they were the incarnations of the one Spirit in 1776, just as much as we are here and now in 2022. They're no different than what we are. They come from the same source. Okay? And so for today, instead of my doing a prayer at the end, maybe I will anyway, but I thought I kept one for myself, Ronnie. I gave you each one a copy of Ernest Holmes' prayer, and he wrote this. I put the reference on the bottom. I put the reference at the bottom. He used it for his radio program called This Thing Called Life in August 6th of 1950, and it was published in the Science of Mind magazine in July of 1953. So why don't you join me and we'll read it together, and then I'll do our closing prayer. Dr. Herm's prayer for our country. Let's read it out loud, okay? Believing in the divine destiny of the United States of America and in the preservation of liberty, security, and self-expression for all, I offer this prayer for my country. I know that divine intelligence governs the destiny of the United States of America, directing the thought and the activity of all who guide its affairs. I know that success, prosperity, and happiness are the gifts of freedom and are the divine heritage of everyone in this country. I know that success, prosperity, and happiness are not operating in the affairs of every individual in this country. I know that divine guidance enlightens the collective mind of the people of this country, causing it to know that economic security may come to all without the loss of either personal freedom or individual self-expression. I know that no one can believe or be led to believe that freedom must be surrendered in order to ensure economic security for all. The all-knowing mind contains the answer to every problem which confronts this country. I know that every leader in this country is now directed by this all-knowing mind and has the knowledge of a complete solution to every problem. Each is compelled to act upon this knowledge to the end that abundance, security, and peace shall come to all. And I know that this spiritual democracy shall endure, guaranteeing to everyone in this country personal liberty, happiness, and self-expression. So it, as you can see, touches on a lot of things that we're dealing with nowadays. So you might want to take it home, and when you start feeling a little, woozy about what's going on, just read it all and know that it's the truth that is a truth that has been around for over 50 years. So let's close our eyes and turn within. It's a knowing in this very moment that each and every one of us is an incarnation of the one spirit, the one life, the one absolute indestructible wholeness that is the very source of who and what we are. We relax into that awareness, knowing that there is no struggle, no strain, that the spirit of life is already accepting us, cradling us, and loving us, regardless of who we are, where we are, what we're doing, the life that we have lived, or the life that we are continuing to live. That it is always, always readily, completely, absolutely available to us. And so we are making the choice in this very moment to be the very highest and best we possibly can, to be selfish in a good way, to do self-care, to align with the spirit of life so that we know who we are internally and allow it to express in our world externally. We're knowing that right now, in this very moment, that this truth is flowing in us and through us, and we are individualizing it for our own self, in our own way, being the very person that the spirit of life in us has created us to be. As we take a moment to simply breathe, to be mindful of who we are, there are fireworks exploding within us as new ideas, as a new sense of self, a new awareness of who and what we are just burst forth like fireworks in the night sky, and we are feeling the clarity, the wisdom, and the understanding that it takes to live the life that we are living, that it uplifts us with perfect joy, perfect peace, and perfect wisdom, sharing and allowing us to experience the abundance of truth, of goodness and all the perfection that God has to offer in us, through us, and as us. And in this we accept that this is who we are, that this is our experience, that this is our life. And so knowing it, believing and accepting it, we are simply grateful that we have this knowledge, that we have this awareness, that we know this truth, and that it is constantly being integrated within us in ways that we maybe hadn't even considered that it could be. And so we rejoice in knowing that it is so as we release this word into the law, knowing it is expressing itself individually and collectively as our spiritual community and as us individually. And so it is. Amen.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of green, for purple mountains' majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good in brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes root in liberating strife, who more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, God sharing grace, and your success be nobleness, and every grain divine. Oh, beautiful for patriot stream that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shaped thine every flaw, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. All right, now everybody's sing the chorus we all know. I added all those words, I thought, and then I messed them up. Yes, you did. But hey, I tried. I wanted to educate you today about those other words, okay? But let's do the chorus that we all know, okay? America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good in brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. All right. Woo. You didn't know it had all those words, did you? Oh, well. It just doesn't feel natural, singing the different words.
Yes. I understand. Just watch GPD tonight.
What?
They'll have them all on there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Okay, so this is our time for conscious giving. That. Freely I give with a feeling of abundance, knowing that my gift blesses others and myself as well.
My piano turned off, hold on. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I'm so grateful, I am so blessed.
Thank you. And our affirmation, I am grateful for the divine givingness circulating abundantly through my life, our community, and our world. And so Marcia got everybody going.
Yay, Marsha!
She does such a great job. She does not give up.
Nope. And she doesn't complain much.
No, she doesn't.
No.
But those faces, boys, you can watch those faces.
I said not much.
Those faces, the faces. I love them. Yes, I love them. Too bad we didn't have a camera there because those were precious today, Marcia. See, one thing, I can see all of that from here. Anyway, so we have these two new flyers, and this month we're going to Piedmont Park, right? And we're going to hand out flyers, so if you would like to come, if you're out there and in here in Georgia, please do. This one says, are you looking for a spirit? Oh, we put them up in bookstores, a place like that. Are you looking for a spiritual community where you learn, change your thinking to change your life? With our information. And the other one says, are you looking for a spiritual community where you learn how to think and not what to think? Yes. And
when are we
so
going?
many communities are telling people July, Kathy, what, July what? It's a Saturday, right?
This coming
That's
Saturday.
next Saturday. This Saturday coming. That's the Saturday coming. That's this Saturday coming.
Yeah, it is. It's July,
Yes,
for
it's
sure.
July,
How did
first
that
Saturday.
happen?
Okay, all right. So you need to stand up and tell us about this.
Okay.
Come up here. Okay. You would here. Got to use the mic. This is gonna go out.
You got to use that
Yeah,
microphone.
okay.
Okay, thank you. This Saturday coming, we will be at Piedmont Park in Midtown. Sandy? Piedmont Park Party here with CSL West Georgia. We're going to be there passing out flyers in regards to our center in hopes that we can build our community to make us a growing community and celebrate it. But well, let me just put it this way. We're welcome to pass out flyers. However, we cannot walk through the park, but once we find a destination in the park, we're more than welcome to give them out. We are unable to put up banners because that's advertising. So they don't mind you giving the flyers out when people come in your area to walk by, but we cannot just travel through the park. You can have lawn chairs, and I do know an area in the park where it's shady and high traffic, so we can sit there and stand there.
We're sitting on the grass
We can sit on the grass with chairs.
with
We
chairs.
can definitely
We can
have
do-
chairs,
okay,
definitely.
okay.
So we can take chairs and even little tables, but nothing big. Nothing, big in sense of furniture and stuff like that. So we can take chairs. We can take coolers, but it cannot be any cannot be any alcoholic beverages. So non-alcoholic beverages, I'm sure no one
Leave
wants to
that wine at
participate that. So we have the flyers. We are ready to go.
Good.
And we're going to have an exciting time. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a fun-filled, exciting time.
What time?
Oh, well, it's up to us, the board and the people in church, what time we would like to be
Okay,
there.
so it's been hot, So
It's been
we
pretty
probably
hot.
somebody probably needs to get there early enough and stake out a space in the.
Oh, of course, I'm going to do
area.
that.
You're gonna do that?
Yes, because I know exactly where we need to sit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case,
So I think
time?
we could 11, between say like 11 and 3, so we won't be out there in the midst of the heat.
yes, we are, 11 and 3.
11 and 3. I was thinking 11. I was thinking like 4 or 5 from what I guess I was younger then, so.
You might have a heat stroke now.
No, we're not going to have a heat stroke. We're going to have
We'll start
ice
at
cold
11,
water.
Stay as long as we can talk.
Stay as long as we can talk.
Or the flyers last. Yeah,
Right.
There we go.
So, like I
So
said, there are a lot of young
bring something to eat
people.
and some water.
Bring something to eat and some water. So
And, it'd be nice if you share something, Yeah.
I'll bring a cooler so we can put some stuff in,
Okay.
some drinks in. So I'll bring a cooler. You guys just bring your chairs and, something to drink, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, all right, thank you. All right. So this is our first outside adventure. Yay!
Yay!
Okay, so those are our announcements for today, and please do have a safe holiday. A lot of people have hit the road, so if you're hitting the road, do it safely. I don't know what happened. My daughter went to another international trip, and took her to the airport on Thursday, and I was on my way home north on 75, 85 from the airport, It's the international, okay? And somewhere around downtown, just before you got to downtown, like around 20 or something like that, where the 20 comes in.
Yeah.
The police had the traffic totally stopped. I mean, parking lot stopped. The thing was too high to see over. So, but usually when they have an accident, they leave some lanes open. Anybody know what happened? I don't know. I'm trying to find out what happened. The police had, there was a line of traffic like this, and everybody was stopped. You see, valet parking, how they park the cars one right after the other. It was like that for all 4 lanes. This was Thursday. Yeah. Oh, really? Well, because. Yeah, but usually they know really. Okay, good. Well, I did not see any, you don't notice stuff until something big happens, but it backed up. I was like, I texted my daughter, I said, I'm so glad we went early because she would not have gotten to the airport, because I know it probably took them a couple hours to clear out all that traffic. I have no doubt. And you couldn't go anywhere. You just absolutely couldn't go anywhere. Can you imagine the frustration? And the
I
people
can.
who were on their way to the airport and all that stuff, anyway.
gosh.
Yeah. Anyway, so that, I just thought I'd throw that in today. But thanks, Marsha, because I was wondering, why would they do that? When I first moved here, they had done something similar, because over on 75, one of those bridges, somebody was up there threatening to jump, and they had traffic stopped like that, And so I was like, why don't you just go up there and snatch that person off the bridge?
And be done with it.
And be done with it, yeah. Okay.
And let me get home.
Have a great have a great week. Have a wonderful. We'll see you all next Sunday. Bring a friend. We need to have one of those kind of days, right? Bring a friend to church. Okay. Shall we?
Yes.
Okay. Let's do our closing affirmation. We
Oh.
go forth today knowing that we are God's blessing in the world. Only good goes from us. Only good comes to us. And so it is. And those of you out there, you too have a great week and a great holiday, a safe one.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with spirit and soul. be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my song.